welcome back to my channel. I know I took a super long break, but I have a very special video to make it up to you. So today I am doing a collab with Ryann, Telgen, and Adie, Bolduc. We're hanging out, we got our masks on, we're distancing. I have a very special video with you guys today. It's relating back to CP, so I hope you like it. So today I wanted to ask you guys, I wanted to kind of have a candid conversation, talk a little bit about this. So like, what is it like to have a best friend with CP? So I'll do Ryann first, and then I'll do Adie.
Okay.
So like, basically, so like
different categories.
So like, how do you get treated by like our classmates and stuff?
I wouldn't say that I get treated any like differently or like get like bad treatment for being friends with you or anything like that. But one thing that sticks out to me that really bothers me is not necessarily with the people in our school, because I think most of them know you.
Yeah.
But with other people that are like grades below us or ahead of us or anything like that, when I say like, oh, Sadie McCall, and they're like, what? And they're like, oh, Sadie with the wheelchair, and they're like, oh, like I hate having to do that.
Yeah, you
because
like
clarify, like her name is
way.
Sadie, not
Yes.
Sadie with the wheelchair, which bothers me. So
yeah, that's a whole thing that like I have to kind of explain to people, is like that's what I'm known for, and I'm probably going to do a separate video eventually as well, kind of going over that. But that is a big issue. Would you say the same?
Yeah, I would say that. And I also had another thing is like, my biggest pet peeve is when people like think that you're like trying to get attention out of it.
oh yes, I hate that
like,
too.
It's like, she's my best friend.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with that? Like, is she not allowed to have friends? Like, I feel like that's the biggest thing is people are like, you're just trying to get attention. You're just trying to get
Like the perks of
We've
being
even had teachers who believe that when we want to hang out,
we have to tell that story.
Oh yes. So our 6th grade English teacher, and I won't name her here in case she ever watches this, but you know who you are if you're watching. One time, Addison wanted to hang out with me, and all the other kids were going to go to something else, and it was like PE or recess or something.
It was recess.
And it was too
winter.
cold for me to go out. And so Adie was like, can I stay with her and we can hang out and play board games or whatever?
Which, let me preface this, we do all the time.
It's kind of
we
a
stay
thing.
in with her to hang out.
It's written into my school plan. My parents in on it. It's a whole average routine. And so...
Yeah, 7th and 8th grade wasn't an issue with that. We could just do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Yes, and so school was normal with that, and they were fine with that. And so she goes to tell my English teacher, like, I'm going to stay in with Sadie and do the thing.
Like, I asked her.
But then the teacher was like, she's not your guinea pig. You can't experiment on her. What was it that she said?
Yeah, that was something along those lines of, like, she definitely said the word guinea pig, though. Like, I distinctly remember that.
That feels like a derogatory term, and maybe it is.
Of her being, like, you can't just treat her like your guinea pig. Like, she's fully independent by herself. And I understand that people, like, you are independent, and we understand that. But, like, I'm independent, and that doesn't mean that I can't have friends.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
like, what's the difference?
Independence doesn't mean having no friends. It means being able to do things yourself.
Yeah.
All right.
And I just thought that was, like, a bit
I
out
never
of
heard
line.
this story until now.
No, yeah, it's crazy. Alright, just so for some context, that last clip you saw, we were all together, and then we ran out of time for filming, and we had to go home. So now we're all separate, but you will see clips of us. I'll ask questions, and Adie and Ryann will give answers. So, first question, does having a friend with a disability change the way your family see your friendships?
I would say that, like, my family doesn't look at me any different and, like, look at, like, the people that I'm friends with any different, but something that I definitely can say happens is, like, if I'm, like, talking about my friends and I don't, like, say a name or, like, say anything about them, I'm like, oh, the one with the disability, and I'm like, no, I have other friends that aren't the one with a disability, but that's more, like, my distant family. Like, my close family, like, my mom, my dad, and my brother could just kind of, like, know, like, if I'm talking about my friends, I really only have, like, Adie and Sadie. That's it. That's really the only people that I talk to or talk about. So they kind of know who I'm talking about. But it's like my distant family. It's like, oh yeah, this one, the one with the disability. And it's like the one that sticks out in their head. But that's really like the only thing that I would say makes them look at my friendships any differently.
So I think that my parents see my friendships differently because I think that they like along with me and it helps people understand and like really feel for other people and like understand what other people are going through. And like even though like I understand, like I'll try to understand someone else's like struggles, but I think it's just even more useful to like get to know some more people and to like being able to understand more types of people and like certain situations that certain people have, kind of. And I think that that's also helped them, is that they've changed their viewpoint into being more like aware. And yeah, so I think that that's really helpful, and I think that that's a really cool thing that everyone should be able to experience.
Those were awesome answers. Now on to the next question. Are there any like extra benefits to having a best friend with a disability?
There's definitely benefits. Like there's like the shallow benefits, like, you know, staying in for recess when it's cold, or like going in the elevator, like dumb stuff like that. But then there's like the more deep stuff, I guess, that's like learning so much about this disabled community, or like learning about cerebral palsy, or like getting to see things that Sadie does that no other person does because she has a disability. And I think that that is a benefit, because I can safely say that I've learned so much since being friends with Sadie that I didn't know before, and that's definitely a huge benefit.
I think some of the benefits would probably be, like I said before, is like being able to understand and to be able to actually see through their eyes more, or at least be able to more. And it just definitely helps, because you don't get looked at by people in a bad way if you like don't understand this, like if someone's struggling, if they have a disability. Like I feel like now you don't get looked at badly for like not handling it properly, and I think that now I'm more able to handle certain situations correctly, which I think that more of society should be able to do.
All right, next question. How do you think having a disabled friend has changed you, if it has at all?
I would say that having a disabled friend has definitely changed me, for the better, obviously, not for the worse. I would say that it has made me like think about like the disabled community and people with CP and people with any other disability differently, and it has made me like consider that when thinking about something else or anything like that. It's also just like changed me in the sense of like when I'm planning something to do with my friends or like something like that, it's just like an automatic thing, like, oh, can Sadie blah blah blah, or can we do this so that Sadie can blah blah. So it's definitely changed me in that sense. I'm trying to think of anything else. It's also definitely changed like the words I use and the way I say things and things like that, because Sadie's told me like certain things that people say, maybe even without knowing that it's offensive or rude or something like that. She'll say that. She'll be like, oh yeah, maybe don't use this word, or like maybe don't say it like this, because some disabled people can find that offensive. Or some people with a disability or anything like that can find this offensive. So I'm like, oh, okay. So it's definitely changed me in that way too. Like now I'm like more conscious about like things that could offend other people depending on what they're dealing with, obviously. So I think that's like a good change. All of these are good changes. I don't think that having a disabled friend has really changed me for the worse at all.
And again, to go along with everything I've said before, it has changed me a bit, because it opens my eyes, and it's just really fun to have such a good best friend, and it's just really cool to see the things that they do for themselves. Like Sadie, you have inventing, and you do all these things that like help you with your disability to progress and be able to like make your future a better future for yourself. And I think that that's really cool, and it's changed me to open my eyes to be able to do those things for myself and to also help other people in need of doing that.
All right, next up, what has been the hardest part about having a disabled best friend?
The hardest thing about being friends with someone with a disability is probably planning like parties or anything like that, because you have to think about like, oh, will they be able to do this, or will they have fun doing this, or will it be too hard for them, or will they be uncomfortable, or anything like that. And that's really hard, because sometimes there's something that you really want to do, but you know they're not going to be able to do it, and they're going to be really upset if they can't do it. So I have to think about that, which is hard for me. But then there's also the difficulty of like, just when Sadie comes over to my house, I'm like, oh, I need to ask for help for her to get, like, to move around, or like to move her stuff into my room, or like certain things that she can't do that you then have to have someone else help you do, which is kind of difficult. I don't know. I'm trying not to be like offensive in any way or anything like that, because I wouldn't trade the entire world for Sadie. So these hard things that I'm saying would not make me like love her any less. So I don't know. Those are just like the things that are made difficult because of her disability, but not because of her as a person. So, yeah.
I think the hardest part is probably being judged and to be looked at as using someone, and like using them for the popularity, which we don't get, and I'm glad, and I don't care about being popular. But I think that people think that you are popular because you're friend with a disabled person. It's like, it's not how that works. It's a friendship. Like, it's a two-way thing. It's not just me using her to not have to go outside in the cold. Like, no. It's more than that. And I think that that's the hardest thing, is people think that you are doing it for the looks and doing it for the like popularity of yourself, I guess, which is kind of confusing. But it's like, I think that's the most difficult thing, is being looked at from other people and being judged that they think that you're doing something wrong.
Okay, next I've got, what would you say to someone who's thinking about befriending a disabled person?
I would say it's all in your intentions. If you're intending to be friends with them, with this person that has a disability, because you want like the perks of being like going in the elevator and leaving class early and this, that, and the other thing, then I would say you need to check yourself and think about how that would make someone else feel if you're just using them for like these perks, or if you're intending to become friends with them because you think they're a really interesting person and you really like their personality and you think you guys could really get along and have a lot of fun together, then I say go for it. Just be kind and treat them the way that you treat anyone else. Because something that I've heard a lot from Sadie is that she hates when people come up to her and talk to her like she's incompetent. Like she doesn't and like she doesn't understand what they're saying, or like they talk to her like she's 5 or something like that. Like, no, she's a totally normally functioning human being, aside from the fact that she has CP. So you don't need to treat her any differently. And I think that is a really big thing that people need to think about before going into a situation and trying to become friends with somebody with a disability. So I really encourage people to think about that.
If someone was like, oh, I think that Sadie's a really nice person, I would love to get to know her, I would definitely want them to know that, like, it's going to have bumps in the road just as any other friendship, and I think they might be more like noticeable with like social aspect of other people. Like I said previously, how people will like judge you. I think that's something to prepare for if you want to get to know someone that happens to be disabled, which isn't something that you should look for. Like, you should look for a friend that is caring and kind and like a friend material. It shouldn't matter whether they're disabled or not, or any of those categories, but I think that they should know that there's going to be bumps in the road, and I think that there's going to be some imperfections, just along with any other friendship, which makes total sense. Like, every friendship is going to have those, so I think that that's something that should be kept in mind.
All right, last question. How has your view of disabled people changed since you befriended me or other disabled people in your life?
Well, I think it's definitely changed just in general, and not necessarily because of Sadie, just because of like the world in general. Because she's not the only friend that I have that's disabled or has like something like that or has a disability, because I have a friend who has autism, and there's definitely things that I've learned from both like situations, because like as a kid you look at these people and you're like, why are they different? Why do they look like that? Why do they act like that? Why do they do these certain things that other people that I've been around don't do, which is a totally normal thing for a young kid to do. But I think as you get older and as you see more people and start to understand that, then you start to have like this novice knowledge of like what people in the disability community go through. But then when you start to become friends with them or hang out with them, then you get to this like higher level of knowledge of like, wow, this is like what they go through. This is their day-to-day thing that they have to do because of this disability. And I think that I didn't really understand that until becoming friends with someone who has a disability. And I really wish that all people could have that knowledge, but you really only get it if you become friends with somebody. So I think that there's always going to be people that don't understand, but I am really grateful for the knowledge that I have because of becoming friends with Sadie. So I think that has definitely changed my view, is like the struggles and things that people in the disabled community go through.
Lastly, my view on disabled people has definitely changed. I think I've become more aware of how to treat people that happen to have disabilities and to treat them as any other person, as where before I think I would try and like help too much, but now I feel like I have perfect bubble of like being able to help them if they need it, but then also giving them their space if they want to be independent, just like any regular human being should have. Like with your parents, like they're not gonna, at least like the average parent, obviously there's a spectrum of like different types of parents, but like your parents will give you independency but also be there for you if you need the help. And I think that that's kind of the same thing, is it's opened my eyes to more categories of people. And not that there should be categories, but in today's society there is, but I think that that's definitely helped me change my views and my actions towards those kinds of people.